Tiger was a training op, dress rehearsal for D-Day. They walked right into us. That one mistake.
Ike, you have to stop doing this to yourself. What's done is done.
Group Captain Dr. James Stagg.
There are moments in history where time seems to compress, where every decision carries a gravity so immense that it reshapes the trajectory of the world itself. And Pressure 2026 is built entirely around one of those moments, a narrow window in June 1944 when uncertainty, fear, calculation, and fragile hope collided over the storm-lashed waters of the English Channel, placing the fate of millions into the hands of a few individuals who could not afford to be wrong. At the center of this unfolding tension stands Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, a man tasked not merely with leading an army, but with orchestrating the largest amphibious invasion in human history, knowing full well that success could turn the tide of World War II, while failure might extend it indefinitely, or worse, ensure a very different future for Europe and beyond. The film draws its power not from spectacle, but from the suffocating psychological atmosphere of command, where maps, forecasts, and reports become instruments of life and death, and where hesitation can be as dangerous as recklessness. Eisenhower is portrayed not as an untouchable figure of history, but as a deeply human leader, burdened by responsibility, forced to weigh the lives of thousands of soldiers against the strategic necessity of opening a Western front against Nazi Germany. Around him, the machinery of war hums relentlessly. Generals debate contingencies, intelligence officers deliver incomplete information, and time refuses to slow down. Yet among all these moving parts, one voice emerges with a quiet but decisive authority, that of James Stagg, a relatively unknown meteorologist whose analysis of weather patterns would become the unlikely linchpin of the entire operation. What makes Pressure 2026 compelling is its focus on the invisible battlefield of information and prediction, a domain often overshadowed by the visceral imagery of combat, but no less consequential. As the planned date for the invasion approaches, the Allied command faces a volatile and unpredictable weather system over the English Channel, a region notorious for sudden storms and treacherous seas. The landing forces, composed of thousands of ships and aircraft, depend on precise conditions. Tides must be favorable, winds manageable, visibility sufficient for navigation and air support. Any miscalculation could scatter the invasion fleet, delay reinforcements, or leave soldiers stranded and exposed on the beaches of Normandy. The narrative builds tension through this uncertainty, transforming meteorological charts into instruments of suspense. Stagg, working with fragmented and often conflicting data from British and American forecasting teams, must interpret patterns that no one truly understands. His conclusions are not guarantees, but educated risks, and the weight of those risks becomes unbearable as senior commanders demand clarity where none truly exists. Eisenhower, caught between the urgency of action and the fear of catastrophic failure, must decide whether to trust a forecast that could either secure victory or doom the operation. The film situates this decision within the broader context of D-Day, an operation that had been months in the making, involving deception campaigns, logistical preparations, and coordination among allied nations. By the time the final decision looms, there is no easy path forward. Postponing the invasion risks exposing the operation to German intelligence, losing the element of surprise, and demoralizing troops who have already been mobilized. proceeding under unfavorable conditions could result in chaos on an unimaginable scale. The tension lies not in what the audience knows will happen historically, but in how precarious and uncertain that outcome truly was in the moment. As the story unfolds, Pressure 2026 explores the interpersonal dynamics within the Allied command, revealing how leadership is often a negotiation between competing perspectives. British and American officers bring different methodologies and assumptions, particularly in the realm of weather forecasting, where disagreements arise over interpretation and reliability. These conflicts are not dramatized for spectacle, but grounded in the reality of wartime collaboration, where trust must be built quickly and decisions must be made collectively, even when consensus is elusive. Eisenhower's portrayal captures a leader who understands that command is not about certainty, but about responsibility. He listens, questions, and absorbs the perspectives of those around him, yet ultimately recognizes that the decision will be his alone. It is in these quiet intervals that the true weight of leadership is felt, not through grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but through the silent acknowledgement of what is at stake. Meanwhile, Stagg's journey provides a compelling counterpoint, illustrating how expertise can become both a burden and a source of isolation. As a scientist operating within a military hierarchy, he must translate complex data into actionable recommendations, all while knowing that his conclusions will influence decisions far beyond his control. His struggle is not merely technical, but deeply personal, as he grapples with the fear of being wrong and the consequences that would follow. The film portrays this tension with a meticulous attention to detail, emphasizing the painstaking process of analysis and the uncertainty inherent in prediction. The atmospheric conditions themselves become a character within the narrative, an unpredictable force that defies human control and challenges the limits of planning. Storm clouds gather over the channel, winds intensify, and rain lashes against the windows of command centers, creating a visual and auditory backdrop that reinforces the sense of urgency. The environment is not just a setting, but an active participant in the story, shaping decisions and amplifying the stakes. As the deadline approaches, the film narrows its focus, compressing time and heightening tension as the final weather reports come in. Stagg identifies a brief and unexpected break in the storm, a narrow window of opportunity that could allow the invasion to proceed under marginally acceptable conditions. It is not an ideal forecast, but it may be the only chance available. This moment encapsulates the central theme of the film, the necessity of acting under uncertainty, of making decisions without complete information, and of accepting the inherent risks that come with leadership. Eisenhower's response to this recommendation becomes the emotional and narrative climax of Pressure 2026. Faced with the choice to proceed or delay, he must weigh the credibility of the forecast against the strategic imperatives of the war. The film captures this decision with restraint and intensity, avoiding melodrama in favor of authenticity. There are no guarantees, no assurances of success, only the understanding that inaction carries its own dangers. When the order is finally given to proceed, it is not a moment of triumph, but one of solemn resolve, a recognition of the lives that will be placed in harm's way and the consequences that will follow. The aftermath of this decision is not depicted through large-scale battle sequences, but through its immediate human impact, the quiet acknowledgement among those in the command room that the course has been set and cannot be reversed. The film trusts the audience's understanding of history to fill in the broader context, allowing it to remain focused on the individuals who made the decision rather than the operation itself. This choice reinforces the film's central premise that history is often shaped not by events alone, but by the decisions that precede them. Throughout its narrative, Pressure 2026 maintains a disciplined focus on realism, avoiding the temptation to dramatize beyond what the story requires. The dialogue is measured, the pacing deliberate, and the tension sustained through subtle shifts rather than overt action. This approach aligns with the film's thematic emphasis on the unseen aspects of warfare, the intellectual and emotional processes that underpin strategic decisions. The film also engages with broader questions about leadership, responsibility, and the nature of risk. It challenges the notion of certainty, illustrating how even the most meticulously planned operations are subject to variables beyond human control. In doing so, it presents a nuanced portrayal of decision-making, one that acknowledges the limitations of knowledge and the inevitability of doubt. This perspective resonates beyond its historical setting, offering insights into the complexities of leadership in any context where stakes are high and outcomes uncertain. By grounding its story in a specific historical moment, Pressure 2026 achieves a universality that extends beyond the events of World War II. It invites viewers to consider the human dimensions of history, the individuals who operate behind the scenes, and the choices they must make under extraordinary circumstances. In focusing on Eisenhower and Stagg, the film highlights the intersection of leadership and expertise, demonstrating how collaboration and trust can influence outcomes even in the face of uncertainty. As the narrative reaches its conclusion, it leaves the audience with a sense of reflection rather than resolution, emphasizing the enduring significance of the decisions made during those critical days in June 1944. The success of the D-Day invasion would ultimately contribute to the defeat of Nazi Germany, but the film reminds us that this outcome was never guaranteed, that it depended on a series of choices made under immense pressure and with incomplete information. In capturing this moment with precision and restraint, Pressure 2026 offers a compelling exploration of one of history's most consequential decisions, transforming a well-known event into a deeply personal and psychologically rich narrative. It is a story not of battlefield heroics, but of intellectual courage, of the willingness to act despite uncertainty, and of the profound responsibility that comes with leadership when the stakes could not be higher.